All right. Steve Healy, the man, the myth, the legend. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you, brother.
Good to be on, man. Good to see you.
I think the last time I remember hanging out with you was in San Diego, and we were running bleachers and doing some like track workout like that just totally kicked our butt. It
Yeah.
was you, Mike Silver, Scott Darren, a couple other buddies, that were in our helicopter squadron, and we were just like
And
smoking each other.
I think candidly, that's the last time I've ever done any kind of track slash bleacher workout.
I think Stu is right there with you, and I have to ask Steve, because I wasn't obviously hanging out with you guys, but I knew Stu from we were roommates at the academy, and I saw his physical prowess then and now, and I'm just curious, like who of you was carrying him up the stairs?
It was a group effort. We just had,
Yeah,
you tag teamed it, kind of
yeah.
handed it off. Depends on who needed to do.
Nah, dude, man, I've been getting back in the gym, man. I've
I see that,
some
dude. You look good.
been
It's
doing some
good. It's
squats
tough
and some.
north of 40 to keep that jawline. You gotta
You
do
got it.
work.
You got to, man. You got
Yeah,
to.
but you have that beautiful beard, man. Like people should definitely watch this episode, not listen to it, because that's a beautiful beard, very nicely crafted. That's I'm a little bit jelly. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie, I'm jelly.
I'm sure we're gonna get into it, but I was, academy guy, military, 10 and a half years. It was just you shave. That's what you do. And when my late wife Nick was going through cancer treatment, one of the last things had to do was have this surgery. And it was two surgeries. They're gonna be about 13 weeks apart. And I did the whole like NHL like playoff thing where you like grow a beard, like because I was like, this is the final. This is we're gonna do this. So I grew a beard. And then the day of her second surgery, I shaved it all off. And my whole family was like, you look better with a beard. Like less face is good.
That's
So
funny.
I
Oh, that's cool.
had to grow it right back.
You got some gray coming in here, buddy.
It's
My wisdom.
distinguished. It's
That's my wisdom.
distinguished. That's good, man. I love it. I love it.
Well, hey, for our audience, let's get into it. Let's get a little background. You kind of hit on a little bit, but who is Steve Healy? What did you do and what do you do now?
Sure. So born and raised Pittsburgh area, oldest of three boys. Since I was like 4 or 5 years old, I saw the first rendition of Top Gun, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. And got to pursue that. Went to the academy, graduated there. My senior year, I met my wife Nicole. We got married in late 2003. We married for 18 and a half years, had three beautiful children. One's a sophomore in college now, one's in the 11th grade, and then my son is in middle school, just started that. So I had a beautiful marriage. First 10 years of it was military. Felt like God was calling me out of that. Got to fly with you, Stu, in San Diego out there, and stepped out of that. Really wasn't sure what life was going to look like out of that. I just knew I wanted to spend more time with specifically my children. Really connect. I did the math. We had our first child very early on in our marriage, and she was 8 years old at the time, and I had 10 years to go. And you guys know how crazy and busy we were in those days in the military with deployment. Even when you were supposed to be resting, you really weren't. And I wasn't spending a lot of time at home. So I did the math and I was like, hey, I got to do this for 10 more years. If I do that, my daughter's going to be graduating high school. I won't have much of a relationship with her at that point. So I made the hard jump and got out. Wasn't sure what that was going to look like. And actually was back in Baltimore, Maryland, kind of doing a little headhunting thing. And a church we were connected with that my wife's family helped plant in 2000 was experiencing some crazy growth at the time. And they were looking for someone to come on and just kind of establish policy, procedures, systems as an officer in the military. That's what we do. So I took a gig here and was the executive director for a couple of years at Lighthouse Church, just outside Baltimore, Maryland. Went back to school and actually was set in as the executive pastor in 2016 and been doing that ever since. Right. Transitioning to, what happened with our family and probably what we're going to talk about mostly here. It was in right around 2016, 17, my wife started dealing with some pretty nasty health issues. Couldn't really get a beat on what it was because she was young, fit, beautiful. And she would go see doctors and kind of got dismissed a lot. But finally, in 2019, we had a doctor refer her to a specialist. And unfortunately, what we found out in October 2019, she had stage 3 rectal cancer. So obviously cancer sucks. And, the fact that she had rectal cancer, she was like, this is about as embarrassing as it gets, to deal with this. And we were in a very public place, as part of some of us on the teaching and preaching team at this church. It's a larger church. Several thousand people attend here. We knew that she wasn't going to be able to fight this in private. And so she made a difficult decision of being very public in her fight, with cancer. And as a result of that, and her sharing and her candor, in all of it, the funny parts, the hard parts, the good parts, the bad parts, it really created this organic swell of followership. And that continued until a man who works at the local Christian radio station in Baltimore contacted us and said, hey, I want to follow your story, as to what's happening here. And he followed her for a year, and released a 10-part podcast on that. That's been very, very popular. And actually the last episode released just 12 hours before Nikki passed away. Nikki passed away on June 14th, 2022 in our home. And there's a lot that led into that, and really just how we got to that place. But following her passing, I've just tried to carry the mantle that she laid down, because I really didn't want to say, okay, this is over now. Cancer took my wife, and I've tried as best I could to just continue and carry her mantle on, of being raw and real about what it's like after loss, after losing your person of 18 and a half years, what leading's like when you take a really, really, really hard loss, leading yourself, leading your family, leading a large church, and, when your faith gets rocked. So 15 months now removed from that, and just kind of just walking it out day by day. So that's, that's the wave tops of, I guess, 20 years.
Yeah, man. I was just telling you before we started hitting the record button, I listened to that whole series kind of when it was coming out, and my wife and I secretly kind of followed Nikki and followed you along that journey. And I was re-listening to it to kind of in preparation for this podcast, this recording. I also told you that I'm going to try not to cry on this episode, and I'm already starting to feel choked up. But I told my wife yesterday, I was like, I can't continue to listen to this because I just get choked up every time I listen to it. And what I think is amazing is that first decision that you and Nikki made, to be public about it and to be vulnerable about it, right? And like to open up and share your story, because I think a lot of times people have a story that's worth sharing and they choose not to. And I think it's such a disservice to not only themselves but also to everyone else who it could possibly help.
Yeah.
And for you guys, for you and Nikki, like, I know for a fact, I mean, just for me alone, like just the story and the hard times, the good times, everything that you guys went through, sharing that publicly, man, like I know for a fact it made an impact on so many people. And you won't know that until you get to heaven. She knows that now that she's in heaven, from the people that she's impacted there. But I'm curious, just what was it like? How did you kind of go through that process and decision making of deciding to go this route of being so public about it and going on that journey, with a lot of people?
Yeah. I don't want to sound overly noble, because there was a real candid discussion that we had once it was discovered what was wrong with Nick, in our bedroom. And it was she was having a really, really hard time with it. It was a very she was using some colorful language in saying, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe, and saying, it's not even an option for us to keep this private, again, due to the platform that we found ourselves in. But very quickly, Nick decided, okay, if I'm in this position, I didn't choose to be here, but I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to be she said, I only know how to be me, and I'm going to be me in this. I'm not going to be the overly Christianese person and just, and say all the things. I'm going to be real. And I think in her real and rawness, it gave her a strength that came from her faith and what was built on, and what we learned through that process. What we did out of ignorance at first became very apparent to us. What scripture says you overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb, the accomplished work of Christ, and the word of your testimony, and loving your life not to death. There's power in your testimony. There's power in sharing what you're going through and what you're enduring, in doing it well, so that others that you can glean from those that are further down the track than you, and certainly those that are coming behind you can glean from. That's kind of, I believe, what I've learned. One of the things I've learned through this process is that's really truly our responsibility, is to be storytellers, to learn from those that came before us, and then to pass it along to people along the way.
Yeah, Steve, and I love, so I love the honesty, right? Because it's multifaceted. And so, one of the things that I found to be just so powerful is, and very helpful, is the honesty of that journey, and the ability to, because now, I think about our podcast, right? And I'm thinking through things that I want to start incorporating in ours at the end of every podcast, to say, hey, and like name my kids and tell them I love them, right? So that into perpetuity, they have this thing that is recorded forever, and they can then revisit it and hear their dad's voice saying, man, get a little teary too, hear how much they love them. But your kids also have that. They have these 2 seasons, I think it was season 3 and 4, on the podcast, and they have all this history, but there's also the reality. I was listening to a sermon on prayer recently. Actually, I'm still listening to it, and it talks about, if you want to see how to pray to God, look at the Psalms. And one of the points he says, he's like, the prayers to God are not, 2/3 of them are lamentations. They're not these flowery, like, oh God, they're like, God, where are you?
Right.
Where are you?
Right.
And a lot of them, 2/3 of these Psalms are so powerful because they're just like raw. And I love how you highlight, Nick wanted to be her, because that's who she knows how to be. That's who God created her to be. But I think there's such a liberty in the listeners to the podcast, and the people who know your story, that are like, dude, my faith doesn't have to look like, well, it's God's will that I have this thing. That's not faith, man. Like, and I'm not saying that's not faith. I'm sorry. That's just not the expression that God always desires us to come to him with. Like,
100%.
he wants us to bring that realness and that rawness. And you gave people permission, whether you know it or not. You gave people permission to be like, this is okay. This is okay. It's okay to have colorful language, right?
100%. I mean, the reason, not to get preachy, but I'm a pastor and that's what I got to do. So, I mean, the God's chosen people, the nation of Israel, the name Israel, it comes from what God renamed Jacob Israel. He renamed him, and he renamed him that. And it means to wrestle with God. Like, he gave him that name after he wrestled with God. So for Nick, for me, you can wrestle. You can wrestle with the deep things of faith. In that, God's big enough for you to, he's big enough. He will, don't let go of the nail scarred hand that's holding on to you. He will give you space to wrestle with him on the deep things. So when she did that, it gave people just a real, it was a breath of fresh air almost, to say, okay, I can have faith and still have questions.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one other point to that is, my dad was somebody who battled cancer multiple times. I was on deployment the first time, and then he battled it later, and he did it in private. Like, he had this weird, and he's from Mexico, Mexican macho, like a lot of cultural things there. Yeah. But what I will tell you is, by choosing to, and if people are, and I just say this to any listeners who may be going through something, it doesn't help your family and it doesn't help those around you to do it in silence, right? To go through it alone, because people want to be part of it. They want to feed into you. They want to pour into you. They want to love on you. And the silent part of it, the private part of it, is not always, it's not the necessarily the way that you want to leave that with your family, right? Or that you want to leave that with those around you. And there's an opportunity in the suffering to truly be able to pour into and even lead others in a way that you just can't even anticipate.
Yeah, 100%. And now I would say to anyone enduring, like, you don't have to be like, do what Nick did, do what I did, and put everything on blast. I mean, but there are that whole idea that not everyone gets access to everything. They don't have to. That's not incumbent upon you. But there are not everybody gets access to everything, but somebody's got to get access to you, and those closest to you, they got to know where you're at. They got to know what you're enduring. They got to know you're battling, because they want to help. They want to help, and it's part of their process too. If they don't know where you're at, and you can't have that kind of conversation with them, it can be at their detriment as well. They just, so it is that, it's finding that nuance of like, okay, I don't want to be a public person, but I also can't be so private that I don't let anybody in.
So this brings me kind of to a question that that gets asked a lot to me as I'm, talking to people about, my faith, and, specifically talking to people that might not be a believer, or they're exploring. And that long series podcast, they hit a lot on 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in my weakness. And the question is, to people that might not be believing, is like, why do bad things happen to good people?
Mm-hmm.
So, in your case, like, why does cancer to an amazing woman, your bride, happen? And
Right.
why does it happen to good people? And how can you explain that to someone who might be on the fence about, believing in our God? Let's go, Pastor. Let's go, Pastor.
Yeah. So the short answer is, I don't know. But here's what I can speak to, because I can't fully wrap my mind around an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful God. For me, I came to my faith in my early 20s. Okay. Then from between the age of like 20 to 30, I would consider myself, a marginal Christian. I went to church on Sunday. I took my family on Sunday, but very quickly I was like, hey, is this guy wrapping up the sermon? Because I'm on the West Coast and the Steelers play East Coast time and the game's at 10 and I need to get home because my
That's
DVR,
right.
so there's that. And then, yeah, I did Devos. I spend like 10, 15 minutes a day, but I didn't spend a lot of time wrestling. There's things that are going on. There's work life, there's home life, and it's good. They're important things you got to deal with. All right, then fast forward to the time that now I'm, between 30 and 40. I'm in ministry. I work at a church. At the end of the day, I had a wife, I still had kids, I still have responsibilities, I still had bills. Do I really think in the 10 minutes to 1 hour to 3 hours that I spend exploring the deep things of God, that I'm going to fully wrap my mind around an all-knowing, all-seeing, eternal being, when I've walked this out for what, a few decades, in a limited amount of time in that decade? So I don't know why he does what he does and why he allows it. I know that there's sin. I know we live in a broken world. I know there's the bad things do happen to good people, and I wish it didn't happen. But I do know this: my hope is not here. I'm passing through. I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to the celestial city, there where there will be eternity, where there will be no tear, there will be no pain, no suffering. So I wrestled real hard, man, when Nick got sick, and we were believing, and we were being prophesied over and told, hey, she's going to win this. It's going to be incredible. And she didn't, and she died. And it was a hard death. It was not, she went quietly and easy. She was in a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in the end. And honestly, when she finally did pass away, my first thought was, thank you, Lord, you took her, because she was in so much pain. I was actually relieved when she took her last breath and I said goodbye to her. Fast forward, about 4 months before she passed away, when we got the scan that was really bad, it said the cancer had exploded. It was our practice every year to go to a beach in North Carolina as a family. And that was going to be her 40th birthday in June. And she was in a real bad place. And she said, hey, I'm not even going to be able to make our beach vacation. I'm not even going to make my 40th birthday. We told her, hey, book the vacation, babe. It's going to be something you're going to look forward to. Let's do it. Well, Nikki passes away a week prior to her 40th birthday, but we still have this beach house. And I wasn't going to go. And I was not going to go. I was not in a place to do it. I had just done her funeral. I was, I wasn't convinced I could be alone. But Nick wrote me a letter. And, she wrote a lot. She wrote stacks and stacks of letters. And she wrote me a letter and she said, please go to the beach. Please go to the beach. You need to rest. You need to get clear. You need to wrestle with God. Go be with my kids. And I did. And I went to that beach and I spent hours every morning on that beach by myself with my Bible, with worship music, crying and asking that question. Why? Why, God? There was a following. There was thousands of people that were watching this. And we were getting text literally globally. Like I'm getting text and emails from service members and stuff I knew that were in Europe and in Asia, people that were following the podcast. Because again, we're in a military town. We're in between Baltimore and Annapolis. So our church, there's a lot of military come here and they would go to, we're hearing people in Seoul, South Korea that are sharing it on their base. I'm like, Lord, the world was watching this. The world was watching this. You could have shown up and showed off. So many would have come. And he took me to a portion of scripture during my time there, man, when I was reading about the mighty men of God. And it's one of those portions of scripture where it's just a list where you kind of just, it's one of those where you just kind of peruse it. Like, okay, you just kind of
go real faster.
Yeah. You're like, all right, I don't even know these guys. Well, it ends with the last guy he names is Uriah the Hittite. And I'm like, Uriah the Hittite was one of David's mighty men. Uriah the Hittite, his wife was Bathsheba, the one that David slept with, had an affair with, had an illegitimate child with, that ultimately David, to cover it up, sends him to war with his own death certificate in hand to give to the general that says, hey, when the fighting's the strongest, step back from this man so that he perishes. And God showed me that this man, Uriah the Hittite, who was faithful, who was good, who was loyal, who was caring, loving, was a mighty man for the king. His last moment, when he is fighting for the king, what was going through Uriah the Hittite's mind when he turns and sees that all his boys had backed away from him and had abandoned him, and he dies? He had to, in that moment, think, what is this? Total betrayal.
What's up, God?
He was betrayed. His wife cheated on him, like all the worst things to this good man. Then God takes me to another portion of scripture that said David was faithful in all matters of the law. All. It's a very intentional word. In all matters of the law, except for the matter of Uriah the Hittite. The whole purpose of Uriah's life, the whole purpose, was for him to live a life that said, we need a better David. We need a better David. David was great, but we need a better David. That's why I sent my son. That's why I sent Jesus. And God told me on that beach, Steve, this story is not about Nick. This story is not about you. This is the story of the redemptive work that I'm doing, the tapestry that is being laid out over millennia, of which you are a part of. That and you're going to walk in glory with me. It's going to be beautiful. But babe, don't think you're going to wrap your mind around this. Don't think you're going to wrap your mind around this. That same afternoon, I got a DM on Facebook. And this lady reached out to me and she said, you don't know me. We've never met. I never met your wife, but I was made aware from a friend of your story, and I've been following. And my father had cancer, and he was not a believer. He was angry at God. He asked a lot of why questions, and we struggled for years as to how to reach him, because we knew this was terminal. We knew it was gonna take him, and we were concerned of where his ultimate destination was going to be. Out of desperation, we shared your wife's story with my father. And we said, hey, Dad, would you please listen to this? Would you please listen to this person and how they're wrestling? And she said, my father has now gone home. He's passed away. But before he passed away, he professed Christ as his Lord and Savior, in a large part because of the way he saw your wife wrestle. And my family is very, very comforted by the fact of that. So I'm so sorry for your loss. And I cried. I cried on that beach because the way my wife walked it out, heaven was populated by at least one more person. And that's how I reconciled. Very long answer to your question. Why do bad things happen to good people? We got to be very, 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 very careful as Christians to throw around Romans 8:28, say God works all things together for the good of those who love him, called according to his purpose. To say that and put that on a coffee mug or a bumper sticker can be rude, offensive, and hurtful for someone that's enduring a really hard time. We got to be real careful how we come alongside somebody and give them that. But it is true. It's 100% true. He does work all things together. We just won't understand it on this side, most of it.
Dude, that is
Powerful, man.
super powerful. Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that, man. And I think so many people, and it's crazy that the courage of that woman to reach out to you, as Stu mentioned earlier, man. There's going to be who knows the untold thousands that are going to be in heaven because of the story that they heard, right? And that is such a powerful, powerful testimony. And man, it reminds me, I was just listening to this series about prayer from John Mark Comer. And it's a 4-part series. And for those of you that want to listen to it, it's in his podcast, and it's back in 2022. And one of the sections is unanswered prayer. And the part that really hit me, and he talks very beautifully about unanswered prayers and gives very biblical reasons why things, again, limited by our understanding of this God, this almighty God. But one of the things that really stuck with me is he mentioned the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? And he mentioned what they said to Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, hey, I'm going to put you in the stove, right? I'm going to crisp you up. And their response was, my God can save us from this, and we will never bow to you or your gods. But even if he chooses not to save us, even if he chooses not to, we will remain faithful. And I was like, oh, because I didn't read it that way previously. I read it differently. I didn't read it in the context of unanswered prayer and even addressing unanswered prayer from the beginning, right? And they didn't know they were going to be saved from that.
Right.
But they said straight up, even if he chooses not to, because he's God.
Yeah. If
he chooses not to, we are still going this path with full confidence, hope, and faith.
Yeah.
And it really was just very impactful. And your story and the way that you just framed that, I think more people need to hear, because it's not, we try to simplify God and put him in this black and white box. If you're almighty, then you will answer my prayer. No, he's not a genie in a bottle. This isn't a story of Aladdin. This is a story of an almighty God who, as in the vision of the tapestry, dude, I love how we're just a string in that, right? We're just a piece of that, but to his glory. And what I also want to emphasize that comes out so clearly, it's not, as a Christian, God never promises an easy life. Actually, contrary. But the part that's amazing is you still, as a believer, you specifically, you still suffer, you hurt, you question, you have anger. But the thing that outweighs all of that is hope.
Right.
It's hope. And you can say goodbye to a wife of 18 years before her 40th birthday and say something like, man, I'm thankful that she's home. That's a big difference, I think, between having and not having that faith. And I think more people need to hear that as Christians, I don't expect to have an easy life, nor do I think it'll be pain-free. That's not what it's about. It's about the fact that I have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. I have all these things that can overcome all of the things that are trying to pull down.
100%.
So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and our struggle isn't unique to our time frame. I mean, we might feel that way, but I mean, this is why I got this massive sleeve tattoo after my wife passed as a reminder, because this is what the Apostle Paul, he wrote to the church at Corinth. He said, hey guys, I know this is hard, but at the end of the day, do know the resurrection happened. And because of that, there will be a day come when the mortal will put on immortality, that the perishable will put on the imperishable. And that old saying will ring true: death, where's your sting? So stand firm in your faith. Plant your back foot, man. This is going to be hard. Jesus said, and you said it there, though in this world you'll have trouble. He doesn't say if, he says you will. I have overcome the world. Like, you got to plant your back foot and think, all right, Lord, I'm passing through. Now, I love that he gives us the space to still be mad about that, get angry about it, rail against it, be confused by it. He's not draconian. He's not an angry God. He's a loving, good father that pastors us through it. But you're right. It's the hope. The question that I tell everyone to resolve, they're like, how do you have to resolve one question in your life, and that's it. That's it. The only question you need to resolve is whether or not you believe that tomb was empty. That's it. That's the only thing you got to resolve in your life. And then everything else trickles down from there, because he's either, I think it's C.S. Lewis who said, he's either Lord, lunatic, or liar. That's all he gives you. Those are essentially the three options you get. He's either he lied, he's not who he said he was, he's a complete madman, or he's Lord. And that all gets resolved by whether or not you think that tomb's empty or not. Because if the tomb's empty, that's game, set, match. If it's not, as the Apostle Paul says, we're to be pitied more than anyone, because we should be out there in revelry and having all kinds of. So everything kind of trickles down from there, man. So you're 100% right. It's this idea that I got a hope, and it's not going to be found here. I should enjoy here. I should enjoy my children. I should enjoy my wife. I should steward everything that I got really, 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 really well, because what I do down here does affect up there. But I ain't staying here.
Yeah, dude, I've used that so many times. Sorry, Stu, I know your question, but I've used that so many times is when people talk about, faith. It's not me. It's not the choice I gave. It's the choice Jesus gives, right? You have no option to say, oh, he was a great teacher, and that's it. Like that, he says, I am the Son of God. So you only have, and he didn't mince his words. The only way to the Father is through me, right? Like, he doesn't mince his words. So we can't mince the interpretation. You cannot say, and you have to look at it like, if I said, David Gutierrez said, I am the Son of God. Well, you have a choice. You're like, dude, that dude's crazy. Right. Or, wow, he's the Son of God, I believe in it. Or he's just a pure liar. Like, that is all you're left with. So I love that you brought that up, because dude, I use that all the time. Like, hey, you don't have an option. I'm not trying to be rude about it. You just have no option. The dude said he's the Son of God. Like, what do you do with that? You got three choices.
100%.
Hey, this reminds me of, David and I were in a place about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, when we were kind of in this transition period from leaving the military and going to civilian world, trying to figure out, like, what we're going to do with the rest of our life, kind of that second chapter. We had built our real estate businesses, and we were hustling, man. We were grinding, we were burning the candle at both ends. And, we said we were doing it for the family. We said we were doing it for all these right reasons. But then when we took a hard look at it, like, our actions weren't really matching our words, right? Like, we weren't paying attention to our family. We weren't, having relationships with our God. We were unhealthy, because we were so focused on making money and building wealth and the work and the job and, providing. And we got to this place, like, we had this aha moment of like, what are we doing? Like, what's this all for? Right. And that's where we kind of got to starting, the Kinetic Man mastermind, of like inviting men into our lives that were going to help us essentially and help each other get to this place of like, let's get back to what's most important in our life. Right. And let's act on the priorities that we say are our priorities. And one of the exercises that we put ourselves through, and then now we put other men in the group through, is just this idea of, you've probably heard it before, like this idea of like, hey, you just found out you have 90 days to live, right? Like, what are you going to do with those 90 days? And, in your story, that was kind of a reality, right? And so I'm curious, hearing from someone who has actually gone through that, not yourself, but from, from Nikki, like, what did you do? Like, how did your priorities change if they changed? Um, I'm hoping that we can kind of give our listeners like a little bit of insight onto like what is the priority,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, not to be glib, but I think the priority is there's so few priorities. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember like 2 or 3 weeks before Nick got diagnosed, like we had a minivan and we found out it needed like $1,500 worth of work. And I was like all jammed up about like this $1,500 bill. I'm a pastor. I'm like, where am I going to get the money? Like this, the worst thing, like the world was caving in. The minute that doctor walked into that office and said, Mr. Healy, I don't know how to tell you this, but your wife has a 9-centimeter tumor and I know it's cancer. Everything stopped. Everything stopped. Like what was important became crystal clear and important, and what wasn't has just gone away. So I'll tell you, 4 years removed from that conversation happened on October 2nd, 2019. That's when the doctor came in and said Nick had cancer. Not to be trite, but there's so much that I just don't care about anymore. There's just so much stuff that used to get me so jammed up or so turned around or so fired up. The senior pastor that he passed away in 2017 of our church due to cancer. He was 73. I used to watch him, man, in those days, in those early days of me coming on church work and me running, and he'd always be like, hey man, cool your jets. Like just he would just cool your jet. I'd get all fired up and he would laugh. He'd be like, man, you're really passionate about that. It was just this perspective of just, Jesus was never in a rush. Just go easy, man. Just go easy, buddy. Like not everything has to be a 10. Like some things matter. For me, what mattered was loving my wife well. Jesus said, love your wife as he loved the church. He died for his church. That became priority one. I am going to do everything in my power to take care of this woman. A man who does not take care of his family is worse than an unbeliever. That's Timothy. I got to love these kids. I have to shepherd these little hearts, and to the best way, give them a lot of space. Give them a lot of space to just war and wrestle and not come down hard, and give them guardrails and make them feel like, hey, dad, I can be real with dad. I have to provide. I have to do what I got to do to keep food on table, house over table. And my job is to provide safety, stability, and security to my family. That's and everything else is marginal. Everything else is, I'm just not good enough. I don't have enough capacity, capability, or competency than that, like that little bit that I can steward well. I need to surround people in my life that can help me in those regards, because I cannot be all things to all people. I'm going to need a lot of help. But really, that's my lane, man. That's my lane. Those four, that's my first church. That's what I got to take care of. And that's all I got the competency for. And that sickness and ultimately her passing has proven that true.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. Yeah, that's spot on, dude. You're spot on.
When there's comfort in that, right?
There
like
is.
I have found a ton of comfort in just not caring about a lot of things. Like my life is completely transformed, and the things I care about and then I allow in. And I'm glad you said that, because one of the questions the last question I want to ask you, and I think it's directly related, is during the podcast, one of the things that just stuck out to me, I probably an unintended, my mind went to an unintended place, but the what is his name? David? I forgot. I apologize. I forget his name. I think it's David. But he asked you a question. He asked, the point of his question was, in the decisions that you're making since Nick's passing, are you finding that there's support or non-support in those questions? I don't know if you remember this question, but basically, and your answer was like, yeah, it's interesting because sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And where my mind went was, it went to this place of, who do we allow to speak into our life, right? Like because I feel like, especially us as men, we allow way too many voices, way too much noise, way too much we give permission to too many things to speak into our lives. And part of the just not caring anymore is also cutting that out, right? Like I just don't value what your opinion or your like or your whatever of me anymore. And the comfort in that. And so I'm just curious. My question is, since you have this different perspective and since you've had the challenge of working through, your decisions and some being supported, some not, and that's going to continue on. And I envision as you're a young, strapping, handsome young man, right? And so there are going to be very real life things like future love interests and moving past these significant events into continuing to live your life and move forward, and all the challenges there with the kids, with the family, all these things are going to be challenged. And so I'm just curious from that perspective, and for our listeners, before we have to experience something, catastrophic and life-changing and life-altering, to be able to take control of what we allow in and who to speak into, and that drives our decision-making process. How do you do that now? And have you had to like legitimately be like, you know what? I love you, but I ain't hearing it.
Yeah. What I've learned through this process, it wasn't anything that I read, or I literally had to walk through this, is essentially, I would put it this way. There's the wide gate and there's the narrow gate about who gets in. First, for wide gate, I want to know, are you invested in me or are you interested in me? Because those are two very different things. You can be interested in my story and having an opinion on it, but are you invested in me? Do you want to see me do well here? Are you in my life? Are you genuinely concerned? So that's gonna a wide swath of people are going to fall out real quick because they're just interested. They just want to, I mean, hey, it's good TV, man. It's a good story. So I'm going to watch it and I'm going to have an opinion about it. But outside of me watching it, I don't really think about it. That's different than the group that's literally invested in you. They're pouring into you. They're spending time with you. Okay. So then I got to deal with, all right, is this person, all right, they're invested in me. Now I'm up against a decision. Are you looking to protect me? Are you looking to possess me? That's the narrow gate, right? That is, hey, you disagree with my decision, and you want to own something. That's not for you to own. Like I appreciate your opinion, but don't try to manipulate me because this is what you would do in the situation. Versus, are you looking at this from my lens and, hey, I just want you to see it from this angle to protect. Like I'm with the people go, hey, I'm with you, ride or die. I love you. I trust you. I can't imagine being in the situation that you're in. I support your decision, but I just want you to think about it, bud, from this, just think of this angle here. I just want to make sure you see this clearly. I'll receive that because I know I got blind spots and I know I got things that I'm missing, and I'm moving real fast and I'm making a lot of decisions real time. And a lot of times I'm losing altitude, airspeed, and options real quick. So I need people to invest in me and tell me what I'm doing and what I'm missing and I'm seeing. That said, that's a narrow group of people that are invested in me and they're looking to protect me. They're not just interested, nor are they trying to possess me. That's how, and with that becomes a very, very, very small group of people that when they speak, you have my full ear and attention. And I've given them that too. I've given them permission. I've said, listen, I need you to speak into my life. So because a lot of people, I had to learn that because a lot of times I was making decisions. People were after the fact saying, yeah, I wanted to say something. And I had to tell them, why didn't you? Like, that's why you're my close friend. That's why you're my boy. That's why if you saw something, help a brother from now on. So giving people the authority, and then you got to just be humble enough to listen to them because they can pull that card on you and say, hey, listen, you told me that I could speak into your life. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I at least want you to take a second and receive it, process it, pray over it, and see if there's any truth in it.
Dude, I love the way you frame that. That is awesome. I love the way you frame that. And I think if we did that more often, the truth that would fill our hearts and our minds would be so vastly different than the garbage that we allow in. Because I see so many I do one-on-one coaching, and a lot of the questions I ask is like, hey man, like, why do you care what that person even says? Like, in all honesty, explain to me why you care what that person says, thinks, or does. Like, just be genuine. I'm curious. I don't know that person. And oftentimes it's like, I really don't. Awesome. Then why are they impacting anything, thought process, decisions, life. So I love that filter that you apply, dude. That's dope, man. If we all did that, and then honestly did the last part too, like honestly sought, hey, like Stu is in my life. He's a guy that I've given permission, and it's everything from like
I call him
being a
out all the
husband.
time.
Yeah, right. It's everything from being a husband to like, hey, dude, do you think I should like buy this car? Like it's all of it, right? And he has permission to speak into that, and so, dude, that's awesome, man. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
For so many years, I didn't do it right. I cared way too much about what people thought. You know, and that was in the military, in wardrooms, and you are your ego, you are your reputation. So that's just kind of the dark side of being a military officer, being a type A guy. Dealt with that a lot when I took the uniform off. I had a lot of identity in that, and then I cared a lot of what people thought about that. And it was seasoned men that came alongside me, like you said, that you just said, hey, to your point, what you're doing, you care way too much about way too many people. You need to have a few people that you really, really trust and you're surrounded with, your inner circle, and run them through a real tight filter and let them pull your punk card when you are a punk. But outside of that, man, you're wasting a lot of bandwidth. Because then if you do that, it affects literally every other aspect of your life. You're a worse husband, you're a worse father, you're a worse business person, you're miserable because you're worried about what people think all the time. So that took some tough. I was in that gym for a long time working that lesson out.
Well, hey, with a few minutes left, let's get to the best is yet to come. I want you to kind of tell the story behind it, what's it all about, and how people can get their hands on it.
Yeah. So literally on that beach vacation that we went on after Nick's passed, one of the things that I was really struggling with was the fact that my wife, through her fight and really just what she experienced, I would just sit and watch her write and process and glean. And she was just wise beyond her years. She was just really, really, God really, and that was just due to the fact that she spent hours and hours and hours in his presence, and she got downloads. And when she passed away, I had this righteous indignation, like, Lord, all that wisdom, all that stuff you put in her, that's now going to be relegated to memory. And over time, it's going to be lost. And even I'm going to forget these memories. It's not okay. So what was born out of me was I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write down these things that I watched my wife walk through. And what I believe was her wisdom, what she taught me. So many people were asking within the first few weeks and passing of Nick's passing, how are you doing? How are you processing? What is going on? Just organically, I started sharing what I was processing, and it became this weekly thing where every Monday I would put out, hey, what she taught me. I would put out a lesson, really what I was working through and what Jesus was revealing to me through remembering my late wife and really tying it to a biblical narrative. And really that was born out of me just going over all of her journals, all of her letters, and all of it, like just all these memories. So what just started happening is I ended up writing a devotional over the course of the year. It was 52 lessons of what she taught me. And this devotional that I've written, it's different than any devotional I've done in the past. Usually most devotionals you do, it's a portion of scripture, it's a story, and then it's a prayer. You spend your quiet time and then you kind of go off, you come back the next day, different lesson, different story. This one, you sit in a subject for an entire week. So the way I have it laid out is you on Monday read through that concept. Hey, this is what you're going to be working through. On Tuesday, you read through the biblical narrative and or scriptures that support it, and the prayer that, okay, Lord, we're going to do work today. We're going to do work this week through this concept. Then Wednesday through Friday, I consider that you do the work. There's each day, there's 5 questions. You can answer 1, you can answer 5, but the first Wednesday, it's a self-assessment. You sit there and say, okay, based on this concept, where am I at right now with this? If I was to get real honest with myself, do I apply it? Do I not apply it? Where are there seams and gaps? Thursday, 5 questions, which is a battle plan. All right, I've done the assessment. If I was to address it, how do I address it? How do I resource it? Who do I need to bring into my life to help me with it? Friday, it's 5 questions of, okay, removing excuses. You've done the assessment. You've done the battle plan. Are you going to do it? And then Saturday is a charge that says, all right, take a step, do something today, take a baby step towards doing that. And then Sunday is rest and reflect. It's just a prayer and say, Lord, thank you so much for what you've brought me through this week. And it just repeats 52 times. So that's my process. That's how I processed the year of my wife's passing. And then more recently, a friend of mine who lost his wife to cancer in 2021. Very public story. He has a publishing company. He said, hey man, I think you got something there. So he's taking it to print, and we're in the midst of the pre-sale right now that runs through October 2nd. It was very purposeful because again, that was the day that Nick was diagnosed. So that's us, that's me, that's my family trying to redeem that day. We'll always have the sting of that day, but it's also saying, hey, that's when her book goes to print, and that's when we're gonna put it out. So it'll go to print based on demand signal for the book, and it'll deliver by early December so people can have it in their stockings for Christmas and start it on January 1st. So pretty excited about it. Never in a million years thought I was going to write a book, but also never thought I'd be a sleeved widowed pastor of 3 kids. So kind of sort of how things worked out.
Oh, that's how they work out, man. God has a different plan.
God has a bigger plan.
How awesome. I can't wait to get my copy. And I can't imagine a devotional more in line with Stu and my mission as a Kinetic Man to go through, to reflect. We do this real paradigm to reflect, and then we execute, we hold each other accountable, and then we live it. And like you're the process for that. I just love, reflect, and then, hey dude, like, what are you gonna do about it? Make a plan, execute, giddy up, do it every day, every week throughout the year, and make something different, man. I love it. Can't wait. Hey man, I just want to encourage you, you and your family. We say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, from not only from the pulpit, right? Like you're in a blessed position to speak into people's lives from a vocation standpoint. But man, this book and the story and the podcast is there for perpetuity now, right? It is there forever, and you have no idea, just absolutely zero idea how many people's lives are going to be touched, how many people go to heaven because of the story that you are willing to share, and the realness that you are willing to not only experience, but to put out. And it gives hope, man. It gives hope when people can see somebody they love and respect suffering with grace. And sometimes it's not graceful, man. Sometimes it's not graceful, and that is okay too. And there's humor in it, and there's laughter, and there's love, and there's joy, and there's pain, there's sorrow, there's crying. And all these things are okay, because it all is our experience as humans who live under this beautiful thing that God created. And we just have to be able to draw from it. And dude, I love that you guys did that, man. So thank you so much. It is truly inspiring, and it's humbling. And I'll tell you, man, it is, I'm excited for the people through your story that get to know this amazing, beautiful God that we love and serve.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. I do.
Steve, we'll put the link to your book in the show notes. And I've already got mine on order, so I'm excited about it, dude. Everything that David said and more. I love you. I'm proud of you. Yeah, man, thanks for coming on. This has been an amazing episode. I can't wait for our listeners to hear it.
Appreciate you.
Guys and gals,
And I'll
go get the book. And David, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I'm not gonna be remiss to do this, but Maya, Jacob, Noah, your daddy loves you so much.
Collins and
So,
Wells, love you too. See ya.
See ya.